Hey everybody, welcome back to this week's episode of Build It with Tim. This week we're going to be doing something a little bit different than we normally do. So normally I like to have these videos kind of teach you how to build something, but in this case I'm actually going to show you how did I build something. So I've already built this app. I had this idea last week where I wanted a way to manage some audio recordings that I make on my iPhone. So what I do for my work and personal life is I use like a voice memo application or like an audio recording application on my phone to just quickly get ideas out of my head, ideas, thoughts, tasks, whatever it might be. I just record them with the app and they're saved there. Okay, so that's all fine and good, but then they just kind of like live on my phone and I can't really do anything with them. Okay, so my idea was how do I make them actionable? How do I then process these thoughts further and actually do something with them, whether I need to have it become a task or share that idea with somebody else? I didn't want them to live proprietary, like on the app, on the phone. I wanted to get them into a Tadabase application so that I'm kind of free to manipulate that data however I want to. Okay, so I've already built this app, and today I'm going to show you how I built that app, or at least kind of a general overview of how I built that app. And to do so, I used iOS shortcuts. Okay, so this is a native feature of iPhones or iOS devices where they have a shortcuts app. It's kind of like an automation tool. Okay, if you have an Android device, I'm sorry, this video is not going to be super applicable to you, but you might be able to find something similar in the Android market. Okay, we're also going to be using the custom component, which is available inside of Tadabase and allows us to basically custom code a component to look and behave how we want. Okay, and then we're going to be using the REST API, the Tadabase REST API specifically, in order to communicate from the iOS shortcut to the Tadabase application that I built. Okay, so here is the finished application of what I built. And you can see it looks quite different than a regular Tadabase application. We still have the search box up on the top, which works with a transcript that is generated on my phone through the voice memo app. The transcript is generated on that application, and then I'm sending both the audio recording and the transcript to the Tadabase app. But with the custom component, you can see I can do some fancy stuff here, like make the transcript a clickable drop down. So if I want to see it, I can expand it to see that transcript. Also, you can see the audio recording here is simply a file in a file field, but I've manipulated it using the custom component to display as this nice audio playback playback component looking thing, right? So anyways, that's the basis of this application. We're going to start in the builder just for a few minutes. The backend structure is incredibly simple. Most of the work happens inside of the iOS shortcut. So anyways, I'll just hop over to the builder now and we'll get started with the back end of this application. Okay, so here inside this app, again, it's a blank app as usual. I'll get rid of the sample page here so we just start fresh. Okay, and for the data structure, all we really need here is a place to hold the audio recording itself, a place to hold the transcript, probably a date time field just so we know when something was actually uploaded, and that's it. So we're gonna just start here and we'll call this audio recordings, and we'll create this table. All right, so the fields that I'm going to add, like I said, a date time. So we'll say, rather than created, we'll do uploaded. And we have a file field, so we'll do a file field. Now notice I'm actually using the single file field and not the attachments. I'm going to actually want to use the file field for this. And this will be our audio. And for this, we can just use the file name. That's fine. And then lastly, for the transcript, I'm going to choose long text because some of these transcripts might be quite long, and that's fine. We want to make sure that it gets no text gets cut out. So we're going to put that here in a long text field. Okay, now that's all we have to do, and I can get rid of this default field here, and we're good. Okay, so that's everything that we need within the builder. Okay, so like I said, most of the kind of the action here is going to happen within the iOS shortcut. And I'm going to go ahead and get that all set up and ready to show you, and we'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so here we are inside of the actual iOS shortcut that I built. And I'm going to walk you through this. And let me just preface this by saying I am so far from an expert with iOS shortcuts. I only just started recently playing with them, and there's a lot that I don't understand. I kind of just figured this out as I went. Okay, so we start with the top here where it says receive any input from the share sheet. So I am using an application called Just Press Record, and that's what I use in order to actually record all of these um, audio recordings and fleeting thoughts and all sorts of things. I just get them into that application. Now from that application, that also generates the transcript. So within that application, I have not only the audio file, but I have the transcript as two separate things. Within that app, I can also share it. Okay, so I could share that thing, the two files with whatever iOS tells me I can share it with. If I wanted to send it in a text or something, I don't know, but I can share it to the iOS shortcut app, and that's what triggers this whole thing. So you can see it says receive any input from the share sheet. So when I go to share an audio recording and transcript, I choose this shortcut from the share sheet, and that processes everything. Okay, so it receives the files, and then it's going to upload it to Tadabase. So you can see after that it says repeat with each item. So like I said, there are two different files that come out of the application itself. There's the audio recording, and then there's the transcript. So I need to repeat through both items. I need to essentially loop through them, find both files in order to actually deal with both files. After we end that repeat, we have the next step here is called dictionary. Okay, what this dictionary is essentially a bunch of variables that I can pull from later. Okay, so in this case with my application, I set a key, which is the value on the left, table ID, app key, app secret, and field ID. Those are all the keys that I need for my API request that I use from the shortcut to Tadabase. And then on the right side is the value, and those are all of my API credentials, the field IDs that I'm uploading things to. And what's nice about this dictionary is I can reference that as a variable. So I can go into there and pull out a variable. And if I want to change one of those, then I can change it in the dictionary, and the of all the other steps that reference that dictionary value will just dynamically be updated. Okay, so the next one that happens here, the next step that happens is called get contents of a URL. And in this case, I am using um, the endpoints provided by the Tadabase REST API. Once we actually have that endpoint that's available through our API documentation, we can start to sub in some of these variables from the dictionary. Okay, so here we can see it says table ID. So if we change whatever we change here in the table ID, will be filled in dynamically into that variable located here. Okay, if I expand this, you can see we can um, further uh, further set up this API call. So it's going to be a post request, meaning so we're going to actually create a record here. And here we are sending all of our headers. Again, this is all just straight from the Tadabase REST API documentation. The only difference here from what we would normally do is the content type is multi-part / form data, because that's important. That's important because we're uploading an actual file. Okay, and then lastly, we have the request body. Now, I need to clean up this shortcut a little bit as I was experimenting with it. Wasn't sure if it was going to work, and I wasn't really sure how it was going to work, but it ended up working. So now I need to go back, and you can see I'm using a field ID as a variable here for the first field, field 40, and the value that I'm passing along is the first item from my repeat results um, function here. So up here in the repeat with each item. Okay, but here I actually manually put in field 42 because again, I don't know, I suppose I was being a little bit lazy about it, but I can go back through here and I can clean this up so that it can be pulled 100% dynamically. And I will do that because I'm happy to share this shortcut with this video so that if you have an iPhone and you want to give this a try and play around with it, you can download this shortcut as you wish. Okay, so that's how the shortcut works. All right, and once that shortcut is actually done, I'll show you how we get to the actual how we actually send it. Okay, so here is the application. Just press record. All right, and here are my recordings as well as the transcripts. So when I hit the share button and I choose
You can see
share
I have
recording
this
and
little
transcripts,
option at the bottom called brain dump. That's what I called the shortcut.
I can click this and it's going to send it to that shortcut, and that whole shortcut is now going to run in sequence. Okay, and then the end result is a new record inside of the application. Again, this is a duplicate one, but we can see if I do this again, I'll do one right now. So let's jump back into my iPhone app here, and we'll say, this is a test to test out my audio recording application that I'm doing live while recording Build It with Tim. We'll let it generate that transcript. And then here we will share that recording with our shortcut. And then we'll switch back to the app. And we should have a new file once I refresh. This is a test to test out my audio. Okay, so the next part that we need to focus on is the actual custom component and the page that we just saw. So we want to build that page. We want to replicate that as best we can. All right, so here is here's the finished page. This is what it looks like inside the custom component. Here is all of the HTML, and I'll go through that. And here is the CSS. It's really not a whole lot. And then there's a little bit of JavaScript that I will include along with this. Okay, with all of this, I'm going to include the link to the shortcut and all of the code that I used for the template, the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript. Okay. All right, so we're going to make a new page because I want to show you what this looks like if we didn't use a custom component. If we just had it be a, say like a regular like table component or something, or maybe even a list. Let's say you wanted to try to do it in a list. Okay, so here inside the list component, what do we have? The date, time, the audio, and the long text. Okay. All right, everything's fine there. And let's just see what this looks like if we didn't actually use the custom component. So when I first tried this, my biggest issue was, well, I really wanted the audio file to be more presentable. I didn't want it to just be like a link that you click that opens up in a new tab. And that's where I realized that the custom component would really come in handy here. So let's get rid of this, and we'll start with the custom component. So we're going to add a component, and we're going to choose custom. Okay, and we're going to choose, we have three different types that we can choose here. List is not referring to list component. This is simply referring to a list of data, right? So then we have details. So if you wanted to replicate something like a detail component on a detail page, then we would choose detail. It's for a single record. Okay, and then summary is for doing card-like things like calculations and stuff. So we're going to choose list, and then we're going to choose our table that contains our data, and now we can start to customize this. Okay, so the way the custom component works is it uses these helper tags in order to run different functions. So right now you can see it's always going to have this each function, and it says each and then records and then a closing tag of each. So what this means is that to loop through all of the records from the chosen data table. So we chose the idea table. This means we are, for each record inside of that table, do the following. Okay, and what we mean by do the following in this case is actually display it in this particular way. All right, so we're going to come back to this. Let's just start with let's put in the audio and the long text. Okay, so you can see we're putting in these field values as little like helper templates as well. So field 40 is the audio, field 42 is the long text. And if that's all that I do for the custom component, it's going to look like this. Okay, but that's not what we want at all. So we need to add to this and improve this quite a bit. So what we're going to do is we are going to start with, let's see, let's get rid of that. We're going to start with like a parent container, okay? And I'm going to give this a class of exactly that, parent container. So we're putting this inside of a div element. This is like a container to hold all of our stuff. And we're going to start with that. All right. So that kind of groups everything together. Now, the next thing that I want to do is I want to add the title to the page or like the search. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to I'm going to do that using the H3 tag here, which is heading 3. So that will display search in nice big bold letters. Okay, so if I just do that, it's not going to look much different. You can see here is that search value that we have here. Okay, so the next thing we can do, and maybe it'll just make it easier if I can show you, I'll just copy little sections over here. Here's the next section that we want. Okay, so here we are setting up the actual search, um, the search box that was on that page. So let's see, where was it? Not there, not there. Okay, I'll pull that up in a second. But this is the actual search box here. Um, Tadabase includes helpers for you to use, helper tags for you to use to reference that search input and the search clear. Okay, so I added those, and these are located in our support documentation. And then I added them inside of their own div elements, and then again wrapped them in a larger like parent div element here. So the whole search container contains two div elements. One has a class of search input, the other one has a class of search clear. Search input contains the actual search input box of the input field, and the clear just contains the clear link. Okay, so now we are going to start looping through the records. And when we loop through these records, I want to display them in a particular way. And here is the code that is used to display those in a particular way that I've chosen. Okay, so we are doing like a parent level div element here that I called custom item. And then we have a inner item, and then we have a footer. Okay, the inner item contains the actual audio with let's see, here's the inner item. It contains this is the date time field. Field 41 is the date time. Then we have the audio controller. Okay, and HTML, there's an HTML tag for audio. That's all I had to do to convert that file field into that nice audio playback feature there. Okay, so we did the audio tag, and then for our audio source, we're selecting our audio file. Okay, so you can see I just put in field 40 there, and now it's going to pull in that audio file and display it as that audio playback feature. Okay, and then we have a button, which is our show details button. So when we click that button, we then want to expand the footer and show the transcript. And here's all that the footer is. Okay, the footer is just another div element with a paragraph inside, and the long text field is being placed in there and shown when it's expanded. Okay, so that's great. If I save that and preview the page, this is what I get. Okay, but now I need to actually style it and make it look a little nicer. Okay, so in order to make this look a little bit nicer, we're going to add some CSS. And I'm not doing a whole lot of CSS here. I'm just going to copy it all in, and then I'll talk about what each one does. Okay, so the parent container again, right, is the top level div element, right? So this contains every single thing that we are choosing to display. It contains the search title, the search box, the clear button, um, all of the record data, all the audio files, so on and so forth. Okay, and all we're doing is just adding some padding to that to kind of like remove it from the edges of the page. We're just kind of squeezing it towards the center a little bit. The search container, we are using display flex. So this is a really awesome feature for CSS that essentially lets you just position things exactly how you want it, and it kind of does a lot of things automatically. And then we're setting some stuff to width of 100 just to make it full width on the page. And everything else is fairly basic with margins and font sizes and colors and again widths again, padding, margin, background color, border radius. It's all pretty straightforward stuff that I think with just a little bit of guidance there, you'd be able to see exactly what's going on. And once I actually save that, preview this page again, now we look like this. Okay, so the last little trick that I did here was this JavaScript function to hide the transcript and only show it when I click this button. All right, and to do that, we are using, again, this is all inside the custom component. I'm going to copy this over. Okay, when the document loads, we're going to find the elements, all of the div elements that have the class of expandable. Okay, and that is right here. The item footer also has a class of expandable. So we're going to find this element and we're going to hide it. Then when the show details button is clicked, okay, so here's the class for show details. It is a button. And when that is clicked, we are going to find the expandable element again and toggle it, meaning toggle it from hidden to shown. And here, this is simply the speed in which it actually toggles from hidden to shown. And once we do that again, and going into preview one more time, that's it. Okay, and then I think the only other thing that I did here within the custom component is I have the option to show the action bar. So this is like the refresh button and the records up there. I just hid that. And for record limit, I put 100. That's pretty much all I did. Okay, and then you can see when I refresh, that's going to go away now, just to clean this up a little bit. Okay, so that's it for the application. Again, now that I have this, I can do more stuff within the custom component. So I can add a details page if I wanted to, in order to view more details about this particular audio recording. Um, I could link it to something else. I could share this with like my wife or something, so that she could add things, and we could tie it to logged in user, that kind of thing. There's a lot of neat things that we could do with this to make it actionable and continue and to improve on this. But this is the uh, basic functionality of the application and kind of a general overview of how I built it. Okay, again, the key part is the iOS shortcut, which again I'll make sure that I include as a link in this video here. And that's about it. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Build It with Tim. I know it's a little bit different than what we normally do. It's a little bit more conceptual and not so much of a tutorial. But anyways, I do hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.